Okay, the meeting is now recording. Mayor Napper, will hand it over to you.
Thank you very much, Diane, and welcome to everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone to this joint special council meeting of the councils of the Village of Point Edward, the Township of Warwick, and the Town of Clifton, Wyoming. This meeting is an information session for members of all three councils on the official plan review process. Broken into two sections. Questions and comments will be taken after each section of the presentation. Wyoming's council are all located within the council chambers, and staff will be managing the audio controls. However, for others, if you wish to speak, use the raise hand feature, which is on the bottom right when you click on the participants tab at the bottom of your screen. Remember to unmute yourself when you are called upon to speak. Please remember, when you are done speaking, to use the lower hand feature and then to remute yourself. This meeting is being recorded, and the video will be provided to each of the three participating municipalities to be shared online. If anybody's got a declaration of beginner interest, request they declare it at the appropriate time. This time, I will turn the meeting over to the Niagara Planning Group for their presentation. Thank you, Diane.
Thank you, Mayor Napper, and good afternoon. My name is Mary Lou Tanner, and I am a partner and principal planner with Niagara Planning Group, and I will be doing the overview presentation. So I am going to share my screen and get the presentation up. Can everyone see this screen with the presentation? Okay, thanks very much. It's our pleasure to be here tonight presenting to you an overview and kicking off some information sharing on the official plan review that we're very honored to be doing with each of your communities. Tonight is about information on the provincial policy statement and the County of Lambton official plan. And we welcome your questions. So I will be going through the provincial policy statement first, and we'll pause to take questions, and then we'll turn to the county official plan. We won't be doing a deep dive into either. What we want to share with you are what we think are important elements of each, as well as some of the updates, particularly in the provincial policy statement, given that it is a 2020 document and came into effect on the 1st of May. From Niagara Planning Group tonight, you've met Diane, who is taking care of all of our administrative pieces today, and I've just introduced myself. I'm a registered professional planner and have worked in municipalities for most of my career, and joined Niagara Planning Group as a partner in the firm's principal planner in January of this year. Also joining us tonight is John Henricks, the firm's founder and our president, and he is also a partner in the firm. And Heather Sewell is our manager of planning. Both John and Heather are registered professional planners, and between John, Heather, and I, we have over 90 years of professional planning experience. For Heather and I, it's all in Ontario, in the GTA, in the Western GTA, Niagara region. John has worked in both Alberta and Ontario in small and mid-sized communities in both provinces. Also joining us tonight, although we don't have her picture up and she doesn't have a video function on her computer, is Rhea Davis, who is a planner with our firm, a recent graduate of the University of Calgary School of Planning, and a very welcome addition to our team. As I indicated, we're going to be going over the provincial policy statement and the county official plan. These are two important documents, and some understanding of each is really important as we frame the conversations about the work we're going to do with you on each of your official plans. Before we get going on that, I do want to spend a bit of time on a couple of important matters that we need to have some conversations about, because they're going to frame so much of what we do in looking at conformity with the provincial policy statement and the county official plan. So something that is very important, and the province has included a specific paragraph on language in the provincial policy statement, and it's consider specific policy language. And if you choose to read it, it's on page 2 of the 2020 PPS. But I am going to give you an overview of it now. The wording choices that the province has made in the provincial policy statement are now the standard in Ontario for official plans and how they get interpreted, as well as how the provincial policy statement gets interpreted. So shall and will language is mandatory, and there is really no discretion in those policies. So if you see a shall or will in the provincial policy statement, such as settlement areas shall be the focus of growth, that is a mandatory decision. Similarly, the county official plan uses shall and will language for what is mandatory, as in a local municipality will designate an appropriate land supply. Should means recommended and enabling. It's less mandatory and provides some discretion against shall or will. And you see should in statements such as communities should have a compact form, mix of uses, and a mix of densities. In the county official plan, it's things like communities should have appropriate street and neighborhood design to promote active transportation. And finally, there's may and encourage, and that is the discretionary policies. It's important to understand that in may and encourage, you have the most flexibility and the most choice. Interestingly, the PPS does not use the word encourage, but actually uses the word discourage. So the negative also matters as well. And the discourage in the PPS, and it's the only instance of it, is related to things like discouraging non-agricultural uses in agricultural lands and discouraging surplus farm dwelling severances. The county official plan, for example, includes may encourage, may provide policies or encourage policies for healthy main streets. And so whether you include that and how specific you choose to be is also your choice. One other important note for the PPS wording: the PPS sets minimum standards. So while you may choose, as we work through your official plans, to take a may or encourage policy and make it a should, that's absolutely your choice. What can't happen is you can't lessen the standard. None of us can. So you can't take a shall or will and make it a should or an encourage. So as we move forward through your official plan reviews, paying attention to these 3 categories of wording and what the requirement is becomes really important. And it will help us as we write policies and update policies so they're consistent with the PPS and they are clear, and where flexibility can be provided, we do provide that flexibility. The other important point is around interpreting maps. A schedule map in an official plan is a shall conform to. Interestingly, the PPS does not have any maps, but the county official plan does. And schedules in it, such as the first map, which identifies the growth areas, their boundaries, and some land use decisions, that's a shall conform to. We want to contrast that with an appendix. And an appendix, as we've said here, can be a map, it can be a table, it can be a chart, and it provides flexibility. A schedule is decision making, an appendix is decision assisting. And that's really the difference between the two. And so some things are appropriate for an appendix, such as in the county official plan, where information on a map has come from a third-party source. And the county has chosen to make that an appendix. So there is some flexibility. And that's an important distinction. And as we move forward, we want to create official plans that have the shall conform to where it has to be a conform to, and where there's appendices that can provide flexibility to assist in interpreting the policies. That's what we also want to do as well. Some administrative highlights from the provincial policy statement. It came into effect May 1st of this year, so all decisions need to be consistent with that, and you're probably aware of that in dealing with development applications. It also applies to your official plan update. You must plan for, it's a shall plan for up to 25 years of growth as well. And that's an important conversation we'll need to have. It's a change in the 2020 PPS. What we also need to understand is the county official plan was approved in 2018 under the 2014 PPS. So the differences between 2014 and 2018 will be some of the conversations we will have with each of you as well as the county. I want to now turn to some of the key elements of growth, and you'll see the important points on this slide. Market demand for growth and increased focus on housing, I'm going to leave for a later slide where we talk about housing and the importance of housing in this 2020 PPS. So let me focus on the other three areas. Settlement area adjustments are a new set of policies in the provincial policy statement. And it's important because it provides the ability for municipalities in updating their official plans to take land from one settlement area that may no longer be appropriate for development or growth and move it to another settlement area. In essence, you're de-designating in one area to add an equivalent amount of land in another. I did the first what's settlement area adjustment or land swap in Ontario 5 years ago in the township of West Lincoln, where we took land out of a hamlet or a rural settlement area and added it to an area where there was significant growth pressure to address the significant growth pressure and the appropriateness of future growth in the community. So the PPS has enabled this now, and it's a good tool to have if we are considering making these changes and adjustments in settlement areas. You may look at the last two bullets and say protection of employment lands and flexibility in employment lands, aren't they diametrically opposed? Well, they provide you with different tools, and so we need to think of them that way. The protection of employment lands is ensuring that employment areas are appropriately designated, that we have the right amount of land, and that the boundaries make sense. So as part of this update, we'll need to make sure that they are in the right place and the right size. Flexibility in employment land conversions is a new set of policies in the provincial policy statement, which provides you with the ability to convert employment lands to other uses outside an official plan review, subject to certain policy tests. And the county official plan also provides you with the same ability within settlement areas. These are both new policies in the provincial policy statement. They're important opportunities for protecting jobs, but also at the same time, providing you with flexibility as circumstances change. Because your official plan will be for 10 years, you don't want to be locked into something for 10 years if an opportunity arises. Other highlights from the Provincial Policy Statement 2020, there's increased support for protecting agricultural lands, and I'm going to get into that in more detail in a couple of minutes. There's flexibility, new flexibility on private servicing. So what that means is the PPS previously had a higher test for putting in private servicing. Municipal servicing was the first choice, and then private servicing either through individual septics and wells or cisterns or communal servicing. What the PPS does now is allow infill in areas where there's private servicing or partial servicing. And the test is that if municipal servicing is not available, then private servicing can proceed. There were no changes to the natural heritage policies in this update, and so what was in effect in 2014 continues to be in effect.
Mary Lou, could I just interrupt for a second? Diane, Mayor Hand is trying to get on the call. I don't know if you're able to let her in or not.
Sorry, I was muted. Let me have a look. Okay, I've just unlocked the meeting, so she should be able to come in now.
Okay, I'll send her a message.
Okay, so next bullet is preparing for changing climate. And the way the PPS speaks to addressing this is through managing growth, ensuring that sewer, water, and infrastructure is planned for growth, including stormwater infrastructure, and protecting natural hazards. It's also important to note that the PPS applies to conservation authorities in their decisions as well. So it's a broad-based prepare for climate change across many organizations in Ontario. The PPS also speaks to green infrastructure in addressing a changing climate, and this is a new term and has removed older language. And green infrastructure includes things like creeks and streams, the Great Lakes shoreline, and other elements of the natural hazard and natural heritage system. There's a further commitment to engaging with Indigenous communities as we work on Planning Ontario. And finally, there's a continued protection of aggregate resources with one significant change. Applications for an aggregate resource extraction license will consider depth of extraction, how deep you can go, only through the aggregate resource application. Previously, any Planning Act application, such as an official plan amendment or rezoning, could assess the depth of extraction. That is no longer the case. Let me now turn to the housing portions of the PPS and some of the changes that we're seeing. The first is that there's a requirement to plan for 15 years of residential growth. And this is new because previously it was 10 years of residential growth. Additionally, there's a requirement for 5 years of planned growth that is what's considered shovel ready. So in plans of subdivision, draft plans, zoned lands, things like that. And previously that was 3 years. The new PPS is very much focused on broadening the housing choices for Ontarians across all communities. So promoting housing supply through intensification and what we call additional residential units now, which you may have heard of as second suites or a basement apartment. New housing options include things like different forms of housing, such as laneway housing, granny suites, infill housing, which you have probably dealt with, redevelopment, and some of the employment conversion policy that I spoke of earlier. And finally, there's a new focus on market-based housing needs. And what this does is it allows local circumstances to be considered and assessed in how we deal with planning for growth. And while there isn't a lot of information on how to do this, we know things like building permit history, plans of subdivision and development applications become increasingly important, as well as feedback and information from members of the community, yourself as counselors, and the local realtor and development communities. Agriculture continues to be a focus for Ontario, and protecting agriculture has been a priority for Ontario for decades. What we are seeing carried forward from the 2014 PPS is the focus on enabling agricultural value-added uses, things like on-farm diversification, agri-marketing, such as farm markets, agritourism, such as country inns and beds and breakfast, and really creating that supply chain and that broader economic availability of businesses and services and production, and not just growing crops and raising livestock on the land. And so what you see in the last bullet is the full suite of enabling agricultural viability and economic viability for farmers. And that includes what goes on the land, but it also includes the important supply chain for farm businesses to succeed, including farm equipment, feed suppliers, product suppliers, and that supply getting to market. Although there isn't rural lands in Lambton County and in your municipalities, there is a new provision for lot creation in rural lands. And we put this on this slide because the increase in the provision speaks to local circumstances. And that's an important distinction that we're seeing in the 2020 PPS, local circumstances, and that it's not a one-size-fits-all PPS, and policies that enable local circumstances to be considered. And finally, in agriculture, there's also a very important consideration of a productive land base, and making sure, I'm sorry, someone's at my door, and as you can hear, my dog is barking. I'm just going to carry on. So creating a productive land base is important. Excuse me. Quinn, stop. Quinn. You'll meet her one day, I hope. Excuse me. No, stop. Come here. No. And creating that productive land base is important for continuing with agriculture in Ontario. The protection of employment lands I spoke of earlier, and in addition to what I spoke of, we also need to identify strategic sites for investment in each municipality and confirming that they're appropriate for today and looking forward. Part of what we need to do is review employment areas to ensure their economic viability, making sure that we have an appropriate land base and that we have policies that support the economic viability of employment areas. And it's also important to distinguish between employment areas and mixed use areas. And this becomes important because employment areas have higher policy requirements in dealing with their proximity to sensitive land uses, such as residential housing and such as daycares and schools. Whereas mixed use areas can contemplate including things like residential, like sensitive land use. Mixed use tends to be downtowns and commercial areas. And so we really want to distinguish between those two so that we're providing the flexibility in mixed use areas, but also making sure that employment areas are protected for their intended use. That is my last slide on the provincial policy statement, and I'd be happy to take questions.
Mary Lou, I don't see any hands up right now, but what I'm going to do first is check with Plimpton, Wyoming, and see if they have any questions because I'm not able to see their hands.
Questions from council?
I have one. You're creating more lots. You mean restricting, you have a separate, you can't build on the lot next to it? Yeah, on farmland?
I'm sorry, that question didn't come in quite clearly.
When you sever off a lot and you leave a farm, and they say that farm now you can't build on it, they severed off, are they going to start allowing that?
Typically, no. A surplus farm dwelling, when it is severed off, the balance of the other piece of land is not intended to have a house built on it. And that really hasn't changed in the provincial policy statement.
Going to intensify buildings in, I'm just trying to find proper terminology out here for it. That's okay. Yeah, lot creation. Can you broaden that a little bit?
The PPS, it's one of those situations where they discourage lot creation in agricultural areas, and the county official plan, which I will get into in a couple of minutes, does leave discretion to the local municipality in terms of their official plan policies. So it is something through your official plan that you can make some decisions on. Because it is a discourage in the PPS, the decision to stay at discourage or take it higher to restrict it is with the local council in their official plan.
Actually, I interpreted it going the other way. I'm sorry.
I think from our experience, it is, and particularly in looking at the county official plan and the PPS, the official plan policies become, in the local municipality, become the critical piece in whether they're allowed and where they're allowed, if they are allowed.
A little more detail on the settlement areas that you're talking about here being flexible and able to move some of these settlement areas around. Would that be at the discretion of the municipality? The reason I'm asking that question, in the official plans, they always talk about how many lots you can have for 10 years of growth. And in some areas, they have more lots than what was allowed. But a lot of these lots and stuff that are already in hold are not the desired area for settlement. Could they be moved out to an area that is the desired area for settlement? Like, we're in a lake area here, so I'm just wondering what you really mean by that.
So that's a good question. So, and thank you. So the provincial policy statement does allow you, through your official plan review, to take land out of a settlement area and add an equivalent amount of land to either that settlement area or another settlement area. So you can make those adjustments in boundaries. It's not really been implemented through the 2020 PPS yet. It is generally a 1-for-1. So if you take an acre out, you can add an acre somewhere else.
Okay, my second question then is on enabling agriculture value-added uses. Now, in this municipality, we've had a couple of situations here where we're dealing with wedding venues. Looks to me or sounds to me like under enabling agriculture value-added uses, you'd like more business or more things to go on that piece of agricultural land, but with the MDSs and stuff like that, sometimes it makes it difficult. Are you suggesting this is for the farmers themselves running a separate or secondary or third business on their own land? Is this what we're talking about here?
It can be. So it could be a farmer who chooses to take some of their product and their crop and turn it into product and sell it off their farm and setting up a small retail store. It could be a farm market. It could be weddings. In some instances, we've seen that. My partner, John, was the planning director in Niagara on the Lake when Niagara on the Lake was dealing with wedding venues. And so it should not be seen as carte blanche on all of it. Through the official plan work, we'll have conversations about what's appropriate in each of the 2 communities that have agricultural lands, how much you're comfortable with expanding into this area, and where you feel it's appropriate. So dealing with perhaps the size of a farm market, dealing perhaps with a number, limiting the number of weddings that could occur on a farm in any given calendar year, and some of the other pieces that need to be assessed with it, whether it's through the zoning bylaw or other tools that we have. Agricultural value-added uses and enabling these types of things to occur on a farm, it's also important that we have a conversation about what's appropriate for the community. And you don't ever want to create a circumstance where a place is overrun or the roads are overrun or places are just swamped on the weekends or certain times of the year, given what's going on with the crop. It needs to balance economic viability with the farm, as well as respecting community and respecting neighbors.
Okay, my third and final question is, I'm looking at promotes new housing options and variety of housing arrangements. The reason I'm asking this question because there's been questions asked not only in this community, but other communities on these Airbnbs and whether people should live in these houses themselves before they can rent these rooms and stuff out as short-term rentals. Are you suggesting here that we would promote this type of thing for housing, Airbnbs and stuff like that?
No, and thank you for the question and the opportunity to clarify. Airbnbs, vacation rental units, they're really a separate conversation. The housing policies in the PPS are about making housing more accessible and more affordable for Ontarians. So it's things like rental housing, home ownership, different sizes of units, making sure that there's a supply so that the broadest range of the market has access to either rental or purchased homes.
Okay, thank you.
So Mary Lou, I don't see any other hands up. Do you want to move on to the next portion of your presentation?
Okay, so I'm going to go on to the county official plan, and these are the areas that I'm going to be speaking to. So I won't go through them on this particular slide, and I apologize, they're not exactly in the order that they're listed on this particular slide. So the first one, and it's a good segue into a commitment to agriculture, and the county official plan has brought in policies related to agricultural value-added uses. And as we just talked about, it is important that through looking at on-farm diversification uses, agricultural related uses, agritourism, agri-marketing, that we have conversations about what size and scale of uses are appropriate and what the range of permitted uses are. When I worked in Niagara region, we were dealing with some of these issues, and we needed to deal with the size of farm markets in official plan policies, because at a certain point, you can really overrun a community and overrun an area by adding some of these value-added uses. And I think many of us may have experienced, for example, pick your own orchards or pick your own berry farms, where it is just lined up on the road to get into them on certain weekends of the year. And so managing that scope and scale becomes as important as supporting value-added uses on farms. There is flexibility in surplus farm severance policies in the county official plan, and really supporting local municipalities in dealing with the surplus farm dwelling severance policies. And it's consistent with and implements the provincial policy statement. The county official plan also implements the natural heritage policies of the provincial policy statement, and provides 3 categories of natural heritage features. The Group A features are the most important features with the most restrictions. And an example of that is in this particular picture, but it's a provincially significant wetland. And those are the areas where it's shall, and there's not much flexibility. Group B features are important features with fewer restrictions. It's things like woodlands, and it does provide flexibility in what can happen in and around the feature and how it gets protected. The environmental impact statement that is required with any development application near one of these features becomes a critically important tool for assessing how the feature is going to be protected and how growth can occur in the vicinity of the feature. And the Group C features are important features, but they're really subject to local decisions. So it's things that you want to protect locally. Perhaps there's a locally important feature, a locally important woodland, or any connections that you want to make with natural heritage corridors to facilitate the movement of animals and wildlife through the community. As we look to update your official plan, the natural heritage pieces will become important conversations for us to have, and your perspective on the local features that have been identified in the county official plan become very important for us to know and learn about. Green energy policies are something that the county official plan, as it was created and approved around 2018, it reflected the environment of the time prior to Bill 34, where green energy decisions on where they would be located was made by the province of Ontario. That's now been handed back to you with changes through Bill 34, where, as you're probably aware, you can make decisions on official plan amendments and rezonings, and they are not appealable. However, what we do like about the county official plan is that it does speak to the importance of requiring compatibility with the community and with neighboring land uses, and that's very important. And supporting local solutions and local decision-making on green energy and renewable energy while respecting natural heritage and agricultural lands. And these are very important components of it. Interestingly, the provincial policy statement has changed the wording, and renewable energy is now a should in the provincial policy statement and no longer a shall. And it is also changed in that the PPS deleted increased opportunities for the development of renewable energy and has spoken more generally to increased opportunities for energy in Ontario. So some significant changes and a return to local decision-making on this. And these are important conversations through your official plan as to how you see green energy policies translating into your official plan, recognizing the changes that the province of Ontario has done and what's in the county official plan. Finally, housing and growth. So this is one of these areas where each municipality will have to include the projected 2031 population, and we've included them on these slides for your information. However, you may recall earlier in the presentation when I spoke of the provincial policy statement, we spoke of shall planning for growth for up to 25 years. So 25 years from where we're at now would take us to 2045, 2046. So you can see there is a divergence, and it's simply a timing issue from when the county official plan was approved and where we are at now with the 2020 PPS. We'll need to have some conversations about the length of time you wish to see in your official plan. We'll also need to work with the county to ensure their comfort level with any conversation around going beyond 2031. There are some ways we can approach these issues, making sure that we're respectful of your wishes and plans for growth in your community, as well as what the county needs to do as the approval authority. This is my last slide on the county official plan, and I'd be happy to take any questions you may have.
Hey, Mary Lou, there are no hands up on my screen, so I'm going to go to Plimpton, Wyoming and see if there's any questions.
Yes, I have one on the projected 2031 population. We're over that now.
It is a forecast. Forecasting is imprecise, and we are aware that you are over that population now, and so that is going to have to be part of our conversation with the county, and particularly given the number of subdivision applications and the growth that's occurring in Plimpton, Wyoming. That's a source of conversation that we'll need to have.
Thank you.
I have one question. And I understand where the provincial policy statements come from, and also the Lambton County official plan. So we're in the process now of entering our own official plan. But the way I understand it, municipalities can be more restrictive but than any of these, the county official plan or the PPS. But through past court proceedings, I have found that the Lambton County official plan, our plan. So I need you to convince me why we are even going through this process if the Lambton County official plan, you know, holds it. It's just more important than ours, and I don't understand why we have to put in time, effort, and money into our own official plan when the Lambton County one trumps ours. Can you convince me why we need one?
Well, I can certainly try, and I hope through this process of updating your official plans, we'll be able to convince you even more. The county official plan sets certain things as requirements. That's absolutely true. You're completely correct about that. But the county official plan and even the provincial policy statement turn a lot of very important decisions over to you as to how the community is going to develop. For example, deciding if you're going to have higher density housing, whether it's semi-detached or small apartment buildings, 4, 5, 6-story apartment buildings in the community. Those are your decisions, whether you have them, and if you choose to, where you have them. The agricultural value-added pieces, you get to decide, for example, with weddings or a corn maze or a straw maze, if you want to allow those types of special events in the agricultural area. And if you do, how many you're going to allow an individual farm to have each year. And that's going to be based solely on what you see as important for your particular community. The official plan deals with how you plan for commercial areas, your main streets. Do you want to have apartments above them? Do you want people to be able to add onto the buildings and put more apartments above those commercial main street areas? Those are important decisions. Your employment lands. Are they in the right location? This is your opportunity to look at where you're planning for job growth, and is that land still in the right place? Should it be moved around? Should it be more? Should it be less? Should it be swapped out? And as you've had urban boundaries and settlement area boundaries in place for a while, The swap out provisions of the PPS give you the ability to make some important changes if you feel they are appropriate. So I mean, I could go on, but honestly, I do believe that there are things in local official plans that shape how communities grow, shape the important things that people value in their community, like their parks, how much parkland you're going to provide, and where the parks are going to be. Whether you're going to provide bike infrastructure, do you have a cycling route? Do you want to expand your cycling route? These are the important conversations, and you get to make those decisions. The county has turned those decisions over to you, and it will be your opportunity to make those decisions on behalf of your community.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Will you please represent us in our next court hearing?
I think you can tell I'm really passionate about this. I hope you can.
Mary Lou, before we move on to another question, I'm just going to ask that the speaker identify herself. It's difficult for us to see who's speaking. So who was it that asked that last question?
That was Councillor Nettie McEwen.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, I don't see any hands up at the moment. Are there any other questions from Plimpton, Wyoming, or from Warwick or Point Edward for Mary Lou?
Okay, almost there. So just want to share some next steps with you and give you an early sense of public engagement. Ontario's Planning Act requires, as part of starting an official plan review, that councils hold a special meeting to consider reviewing their official plan. And at that special meeting, any issues you have or concerns you have, things you want us to look at, that's where we'll get into the details of your official plans. The public is also invited to these special meetings. So we're working with your staff to set them up in each of your communities, and they'll be held in the week of September 14th. It's important to note that we will be absolutely respecting the public health recommendations in effect at the time those meetings are held. And we really do hope to hold them in person. They'll need to be in larger facilities so we can respect what we know today around capacity limits as well as social distancing. It's also important to note that any resident who feels uncomfortable attending a public meeting does not have to. The Act and our team welcome comments in writing, and we would be pleased to receive written comments from anyone who doesn't feel comfortable attending a public meeting. Nothing turns on participating in this particular public meeting, because it's not like a development application where you have to participate or your ability to appeal a decision is impacted. That's not the case here. It's really about hearing from the community and from council members about the issues that they want us to look at. Throughout the fall and into next year, we will be meeting with you quite regularly, and you will see everything that we are working on before we go out to the public. There will be a number of opportunities for members of the public to provide us their feedback. We welcome feedback in writing, and we're available to you. So I'm going to conclude with this slide on how to contact us. Both John and I are available by emails. Right now, our company is working mostly virtually, so these are actually our cell numbers and accessible to us as individuals. If you are sending us an email, we ask that you include your CAO and planning staff in any communication so we can work jointly on a response to you, as well as make sure that everyone has the same information at the same time. I did see that Mayor Romboots had a question, so I'm happy to take any further questions.
Hi, Mary Lou. Can you just give us an idea of what to expect for the meeting process for the public? Like, is it going to be where they can get up and do a formal delegation, or do they just come in and write down what they want to say, or what is the process for that kind of a meeting?
So good question, and it's both actually. So we will do a very brief introduction of our team and the project, no more than 10 minutes. we would welcome comments and questions from members of council. And then members of the public will have feedback forms that they can fill out if they're not comfortable speaking in public, or they can come and delegate.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Mary Lou, Councillor Larry Gordon from Point Edward here. May I ask a question?
Yes, absolutely.
In maybe a bit of a loaded question. In your opinion, with the new provincial policy statement effective May this year, will that statement make the process that we're all embarking on here easier or more challenging?
I think it's going to be a bit of both, to be honest. I think in the perspective of looking at growth and how long you want to plan for growth and looking at market-based housing, it's going to make it easier. Previously, it was very much a land supply numbers analysis. I think in terms of some of the other issues that we're going to be dealing with, agricultural value added, there's important conversations to be had, green energy as well. Green energy actually may be an easier conversation now given the Bill 34 changes. I think the natural heritage piece is going to be, it's always a lot of work. But I think the county has, in their official plan, has done the fairest thing they can do in providing flexibility to local municipalities where they can.
Thank you.
Mary Lou, if I could ask a question, please.
Sure.
Councillor Wayne Morris from Warwick. You mentioned the national heritage in the county plan, and you mentioned woodlots, I believe. The problem I have with supporting a county plan that mentions woodlot is with agricultural land worth $20,000 an acre and the maximum fine at $5,000. To me, it's really a waste of time having an inspector having it in there if they don't toughen up the fine to meet today's standards.
I think that's a fair comment.
Mary Lou, there was somebody raising their hands, but I can't see on the screen. There she goes. I can't see a name.
You're on mute, Bev.
Bev, you're on mute. So if you unmute yourself. If you hover over the left-hand corner of your screen at the bottom.
Do you have everybody muted as well, Diane?
There.
Oh, there
Okay.
she is.
No, just does this one operates differently than the one in the county? Sorry, I just had a question around the week of September 14th. It would be great if we were able to do this in person in a larger facility. Just wondered and I don't know what to project by that time, but what happens if we can't? Does it postpone or do you do it in a different format?
We'd look to do it in a different format. Our company has large Zoom licenses, so we would be able to do it through Zoom. As I indicated, it's important that we hold the public meeting. People have the ability to submit things in writing.
Absolutely. It's just,
yeah.
I don't know what we're looking at for September, so I hope we can do it that way.
Us too.
Thank you. Anyways, Bev Hand from Point Edward. And I apologize for being late. I had an appointment. I'm done. Sorry. And then Diane had me locked out.
So
Diane, are there any other questions?
Nope, I don't see anybody else with their hands up at the moment.
Do we go back to Mayor Napper to close the meeting?
Yes, so let's turn this over now again to Mayor Napper to do the final agenda items.
Thank you very much. I found that as a a lover of planning, I found that very interesting.
Yeah. Oh, Lonnie.
I'd just like to, on behalf of the Village of Point Edward, the Township of Warwick, and the Town of Clifton, Wyoming, I would like to thank the Niagara Planning Group and all you folks for a very informative presentation, and it was actually pretty good. I enjoyed it, and looking forward to the coming months. I would also like to thank members of all three councils for their input and participation. It's great to collectively work on this important project. So at this time, as we say goodbye to everybody, I would turn the meeting back to each municipality to consider their individual closing motions, and thank everybody so much, and the group there from Niagara Planning. Thanks again.
Thanks, Lonnie.
Bye, everybody.
Ev, do you want to, can we go first, maybe do a confirmation bylaw?
Sure. I don't have it in front of me, Jim. Do you?
It is bylaw number
Since I
30.
said
30.
I was on the fly. Larry always has it in front of him.
I can do that if you wish, Your Worship.
Yes, sir, please.
All right, I move that bylaw number 30 of 2020, being a bylaw to confirm the resolutions of Point Edward Council, which were adopted up to and including August 4th, 2020, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed on this date, August 4th, 2020.
Do I have a seconder? Speak up, please, because I can't, I can't
Councillor
see.
Mondu.
Thank you, because I can't see your face, Tim. Okay. All in favor? And again, I'm going to have to hear you. I can't see you.
In favor, Councillor Gordon.
In
Okay.
favor, Councillor Mondu.
Deputy Mayor Grimes in favor.
Councillor Burgess in favor.
Okay, and I'm in favor, so that's carried. Thank you.
And then just a motion to adjourn, Bev.
A motion to adjourn. Could I have a mover, please?
Also move. Councillor
Mr.
Mondu.
Councillor Mondu, seconder.
I'll second that. Councillor Burgess.
Thank you. All in favor?
In favor.
If you're in favor,
Okay,
click,
that's
if you're in
in
favor,
favor.
click leave meeting.
okay. Yeah. Thank you, and thanks
Take care,
again
everyone.
for the interesting presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, I got to find leave.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can we switch, Diane, to Warwick now for final closing motions?
Yes. Everybody can unmute themselves.
Thank you. And Mayor Rumbouts, we have one confirming bylaw. It's bylaw 43 of 2020. And for our purposes today, we could do one motion from council doing a first, second, and third and final reading. We'll just do one motion.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor
That's
White.
moved by Councillor White and seconded by Councillor Morris. All in favor? That is carried. And we do need a motion to adjourn. That is moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Morris, and all in favor? And that is
Good night,
closed
everyone.
meeting. Thanks a lot, guys, for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Bye.
So not the ideal way to have a first meeting, but it was great. You guys did a good job. Thanks, Mary Lou, for your presentation. It was really informative. All right, we will see you later. Have a good night. And Mary Lou, I've had my dog bark like that on me before. There's nothing you can do about it.
No, I put a Post-it on. It must have on the door. It must have fallen down.
You know what? The best laid plans, right? I
Yeah.
have 4 kids. I had them banging on the door. It's like, it's not the same as going into an office, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You handled it well.
Yeah.
Have a good night, guys.
You too.
Good night, everybody.